All right, welcome to another Small Business Pivots. And again, we have another special guest from around the world. And literally, he's been around the world. But I know that business owners can only say their name and their business like the business owner can. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, where you're from, a little bit about your business, so we can kind of catch up where you're at today.
Yeah, Michael. Hey, thank you so much for having me on. Big fan of the show. I really appreciate the opportunity, and especially what the work that you're doing in the industry. I'm a small business owner. We just passed year 5. We own,
Congratulations.
yeah, aircraft maintenance. We've it's all the ups and downs, the mistakes, the hard times, and so man, I'll tell you. It wasn't until about year 3 that I started working with a coach, and it was like it wasn't too late. It's never too late, but I should have started like immediately. So
Right.
I have a
Guilty.
huge appreciation. Yeah.
Guilty.
Huge appreciation for what
Yeah.
you do. I think it's good. And yeah, thanks again. We do aircraft maintenance on light GA aircraft, mostly Cirrus aircraft and Diamond aircraft. We're talking 4 to 6 seat airplanes, normally flown privately. Once you realize how nice it is and how much time you can save by owning your own aircraft, where there's zero TSA and you can take whatever you want in the plane, and you take off and land when you want to. That's when a business owner, when they have the resources, they start. An airplane is a time machine. It really starts saving you a massive amount of time. For example, I'm in East Tennessee, and you fly down to Orlando in 2.5, 3 hours.
Wow.
Where it's just it really buys you back a lot amount of time. And so we do upgrades on those. Also, maintenance upgrades. You see the Garmin sign behind me. We're a Garmin dealer. All of the nice avionics and instruments that airplanes use. We take those and upgrade them to glass screens, and we do some flight training as well, and aircraft management. Other than that, I also fly for the Air Force National Guard in Knoxville, Tennessee. I fly the KC-135. So I'm a pilot and been deployed, and that is a lot of fun, essentially going from a 6-seat plane behind me to an airliner.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you for your service.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet. You bet. Well, how do you think we're going to help our small business owner listeners today?
Yeah. I was thinking about that quite a bit. At about year 3, we'd gone past 1 million, and I think your eyes start getting really big, especially mine. Let's just talk about me and the mistakes that I made. But you're like, man, let's just crank this thing to 10, right? And you don't realize the what it's going to take, what it looks like. I've never been to 10, and then the people that I was hiring, I had no process set up. I was definitely one of those people where, you see those coaches and they say, "Oh, my salesman made a huge mistake." He's like, "Okay, well, what's the process that you have for your salesman to use?" And he's like, I don't have one." Well, there's your problem, right? So,
That's your problem.
and that was me. I had no. First off, I knew nothing about sales. I was only a pilot and mechanic. Knew nothing about marketing. So we grew past 1 million only by word of mouth. And wow. And I got pretty good at hiring mechanics too, so I could hire on a lot of mechanics without growing the inn. And all of those, I think, year 3 and 4 would have been a lot nicer to me had I have gone to a coach first to talk about my goals and then develop a process to get there, rather than just go for it.
Yeah, well, that's the freedom we have as entrepreneurs. So I always say we don't know what we don't know. So let's introduce the show real quick, and we'll be right back. Welcome to Small Business Pivots, a podcast produced for small business owners. I'm your host, Michael Morrison, founder and CEO of Boss, where we make business ownership simplified for success. Our business is helping yours grow. Boss offers business loans with business coaching support. Apply in minutes and get approved and funded in as little as 24 to 48 hours at businessownershipsimplified.com. All right, welcome back to Small Business Pivots. You have quite the story. But let's first start with kind of your growing up, your childhood, because I know lots of business owners have trials, tribulations. We lack self-doubt. Not all of us, but many of us do. So kind of catch us up to your adulthood.
Yeah, so growing up, there's actually a really good stat that most of the successful people in the world have had an extremely traumatic childhood. I don't know if you've heard that, but most most of my customers that I encounter that made their wealth within one lifetime, they also had some sort of instability, unstable childhood, and so if you're not alone, and a lot of the things that creates is ability where, not saying it's right or wrong, but you're little, and if the home life isn't that stable, you've got to figure things out on your own as a child. And so it actually makes you a much stronger entrepreneur later on in life.
Survivor,
yeah, that's right. So, my parents, they got divorced when I was little, and my dad had a really nice art business. My dad was an amazing artist, and he made some poor decisions and then ended up losing it. And I watched him, he and I, and then going back and forth between my parents, kind of struggle for the rest of my pretty much 7 years old on, in essentially extreme poverty until I was about in high school. We had like a normal-ish situation. And so those things. Now, my dad, though, he was an entrepreneur the whole time. He still was trying to make his art business, build it back, and grow. So I never saw my dad have a job until things got bad enough where he had to get a job, and just to bring in the bills. And this is somebody that had to swallow his pride and just take it on. And I've heard other business coaches talk about that in the beginning, you may have to, you probably heard this, where there are people that are working a normal job, 40 hours at a normal job, and then they're building their business after hours.
Yes.
They'll work till 5 p.m. and then work till after work, they'll work till midnight or something on their business and grow that over years. And so I saw that, and luckily I started playing football in high school. That kind of kept me away from a lot of the other poor decisions I could have made growing up. And football just it gave me something to really work after. And I've always had a really strong competitive side of me, especially internally. Like I want to be the best for me, and football gave me that avenue, and it was a lot of fun. But then it ended, and I didn't have anything to go past that, and for me anyways. And my grandfather was a World War II aviator. He flew B-25s in World War II. My dad would always tell me stories about my grandfather fighting the war in the Pacific, and I've got pictures of him with bullet holes down the side of the plane.
Oh, wow.
And my dad did take me when I was little. We'd go to air shows, and we'd stop in and see airplanes, and those wheels were always turning. And obviously my dad was pushing me to join the Air Force, and so I joined straight out of high school. Before I turned 18, I had already had all the paperwork ready to go. So graduated high school, went straight to basic training.
Wow.
Enlisted initially to be a mechanic, and then went through. I was a mechanic for 7 years. Meanwhile, I was working on my degree. So that was kind of getting me to the early years, anyways.
What degree were you working on?
So I went to Middle Tennessee State University. They have a really good aerospace program there. Think about, you probably heard the term Embry-Riddle, Purdue, Auburn. Those schools all have good aviation programs. So they train pilots, they train mechanics, air traffic controllers, stuff like that. And you come out with a bachelor's degree as well. So I was doing aerospace maintenance management the whole time while I was a crew chief or a mechanic for the Air Force. And that really, it helped me get my the rest of my civilian ratings license to be a mechanic, because the military rating doesn't exactly flow over. So I think it prepped me well. It was a good time.
Yeah, well, you're already ahead of most at that age because most of us didn't figure anything out until we were at least 30. So you were aviation college, aviation job, aviation military, et cetera, et cetera. I know military, when us civilians think about it, we think of very organized, right? So, what are some of the things that you learned in the military that you think is applicable for business owners? Because I know there's a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot. I would say, and as I grew and became a Air Force pilot too, Air Force pilot training is has some of the highest washout rates in the world. Right, it's you're being trained by the world's best Air Force. People are being sent home all around you. And then any normal training by the Air Force is also difficult. And I think I learned in the beginning, you know, if you can just not quit, you're probably not going to fail.
That's a
I
powerful
learned that
lesson.
very early on, and it is like, okay, so all I have to do, and I would go from meal to meal, and a lot of people talk about this that have served and gone through basic training. You wake up, you're like, just make it to lunchtime,
Yeah.
or make it to breakfast,
Yeah.
and then you eat breakfast. Okay, let's see if I can make it to lunch. And then
Wow.
lunch, make it to dinner. And then you just repeat that and don't quit. And you're probably going to make it. You're probably going to be fine. And I think there's a huge lesson to that in this as well in business. I've heard that said a lot. I'm sure there's extenuating circumstances that shut people down, but for the most part, the people that I see fail, they just quit. They're done. They gave up. It's gone past whatever they're willing to give. What are your thoughts there?
I agree. Just keep going. I'm in the process of training for a marathon, and at the gym that I strength train at, I asked one of the ladies because she's always wearing marathon shirts, and I asked her. I said, "Do you have any tips for a marathoner that's fairly new to this sport? I run short, 5Ks, things like that." And she said, "Just keep training." I was like, "That's it?" She's like, "Yeah, don't quit. Keep training." I was like, you look on the internet and they get all that. You can find hundreds and thousands of tips and insights and everything on marathon training, but I loved her answer. And that's kind of what you're saying. Just don't quit. Don't give up.
Yeah, there's I think in everyone's year one, everything's a fire, right?
Yeah.
Or you wake up in the morning, you get one email, we're done. That's it.
Yeah.
We're over. Everybody's dead.
Yeah. Well,
one customer pulls out, one customer complains about a bill. That's it. We suck,
Well, you have a pretty fascinating story in how you got into entrepreneurship and then the challenges of, I don't want to give the story away, but tell us a little bit about serving across seas and how you were running a business as well. Or do you want to start with your business in general of how you started and some of those trials and tribulations you went through at the first?
Yeah, sure. I'll start there. So I had graduated, got my degree, and I had started reading. I got selected to go to Air Force pilot training as well, so it does help that I had a little bit of security there. But in the meantime, I was reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I never really was satisfied in a job. I just was not. I mean, for whatever reason, whatever normal people have that makes them happy in a job, I just don't have it. I can't.
I know, whatever that thing is, right? I don't get it.
And I would always, we were talking about this a little bit in the beginning of the show. It's like, hey guys, why don't we do this? We could probably 3x this if we do this. And they're just like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I just
you're
can't
stuck.
take that.
Yeah,
Yep. So I was reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and pretty much everything else I could get my hands on. And when I say read it, my wife makes fun of me. She's like, "You don't read any books." And I was like, "You're right. I listened to it on Audible." Okay, well, just to be clear.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're still learning to earn, so.
That's right. So the wheels were definitely spinning, and I knew my dad had done it. I'd watched him for years, and at the time I was like, I don't know what this is going to look like, but I think I can make this happen. And I started, I was working for Cirrus Aircraft at the time. They're the largest manufacturer of GA airplanes right now, general aviation, small 6-seat planes, or four. Actually, technically, they're a 5-seat plane. Just if any airplane people are on here going to correct me, but
Oh, I promise you, there's someone out there that will correct anything we say.
it's the nicest GA plane out right now. But I was working for them, and everyone that purchases these aircraft are millionaires for the most part. The plane's $600 to $1.5 million, and then they've got a jet that's $3 million. And so I would get to sit in the seat with these people and interact with them, and I'm like, James, you're an idiot if you don't ask these people what they do and just kind of rub shoulders with them. And I would always try to just be, nonchalant. Hey, what do you do? That's cool. Tell me your story. And I started flying with customers periodically. And when you fly with them, you're completely trapped in a plane with them for 3 hours. No cell phones, no nothing. And so you've got the opportunity to just pick their brain if they're willing. And hey, do you mind telling me your story? And one gentleman in particular, he's a mentor to me now. He's the reason I quit my job. I asked him, and he's like, James, I was just a normal guy. I was working a dead-end job, and I effing hated it. And, me and my wife, we just started saving a little bit of cash. And he's like, all my friends told me I was crazy. This is never going to work. You're going to fail. We'll see you back in a year. And he's like, well, we'll see. And he quits his job and buys a suntanning place. And he said he was making at the time like 50 or 60,000. He said within 3 years, his income went to like 600,000.
Wow.
Which is probably that's an extraordinary case. However, it still was. He's like, and he said each day he's like, yeah, I'm sending back my bros the the pictures of the bank statements. F you guys, you're wrong. And I was like, I can do this. I think, if this guy can do it, I can do it. And so I actually left for Air Force pilot training, and I was like, I told the guys when I left, I was like, if you ever see me back here, just know my plan went horribly wrong. I will never work another job for anybody ever again other than the Air Force as a pilot.
Yeah. What would you say is probably the best advice with all those entrepreneurs at that level that they gave you?
I think sorry, just to be clear, you're from their level or the level of a young
from
guy
them,
that's just getting their
like them to you, because a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this show, they're stuck and they haven't gotten to that level. So, kind of coming from their insights.
The biggest thing that they've taught me is there's levels to this, especially in. I think of it almost like professional athletes. You can go tell when you watch middle school, high school, or the pros, right? There's a big visual difference on the field, the product on the field. And the people that are at, like, for example, the person I told you, he's got a $200 million net worth. He taught me grace and slowing down. In the beginning, I was just everything made me freak out. Everything, I was hot. Somebody'd say something wrong or whatever. Something didn't go the way that I wanted, and you're just hot. Like somebody sends you the wrong bill or whatever. You just freak out over everything. And he taught me how to handle things with grace and slowing down and having a touch. Having more touch on things, and that has helped me a ton. And it's hard to really explain that, but I think that's probably the best thing that I've learned from their level. Slowing down on your decisions, having grace when you respond to people, and it goes a long way.
It's amazing because I work with business owners as a business coach, and I'll ask them if a young entrepreneur or someone wanting to start a business asked your advice. It's never what you read in the books. It's things as simple as what you just shared. For me, one of my mentors that I really liked and followed, he simply said, learn what not to do, not what to do. He said, if you learn that, which most entrepreneurs can give you a long list of what not what not to do. He said, you'll make it, because there's plenty of stuff to do. It's learning those things, what not to do. So it's amazing when I hear stories like that. So you learned from entrepreneurs, you're like, okay, let's go. So you took off and you opened up this massive aviation machine shop. Is it a machine shop? Do you upgrade? What does it actually do?
Yeah, maintenance, repairs, management, and then flight training.
Okay. And so you prepare these for people that own them, or do you buy and sell them? How does that work?
So each airplane, kind of like the one you see behind me, every single year, the entire plane, it's federally mandated by the FAA, the whole plane has to come apart.
Wow.
It goes through a massive inspection checklist, and then we have to, put it back together and make sure everything works good, right? So it's a big job. It's about 2 weeks, worth of labor.
Wow.
1 to 2 weeks worth of labor, and so we primarily do the annual inspections on these planes, where quite a bit of dollars that go through, a surprising amount to keep the plane operating each year. It's not really common with your car where you just take it to the dealer and they're just going to take it all the way apart and look for stuff,
Yeah, you're right.
and put it back together. It's kind of a foreign concept, but that's how airplanes work. And then while we've got it, it's an excellent opportunity to say, hey, have you heard about Garmin? We can make all this touchscreen, and beautiful.
And operational, more accurate, I guess would be the word.
It's more safe.
Same. True. Yeah. So
that's how they sell it to the wife, because they always got to make the wife.
Okay, there you go. Now we're talking. Now there are some helpful tips. How do we sell to the other side of the family? So on the aviation side, I know there's some things that are more important than others on a plane. So how do you make sure that those things happen? I know, of course. You're listening to Small Business Pivots. This podcast is produced by my company, Boss. Our business is helping yours grow. Boss offers business loans with business coaching support. Apply in minutes and get approved and funded in as little as 24 to 48 hours at businessownershipsimplified.com. If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share it as well. Now let's get back to our special guest. So on the aviation side, I know there's some things that are more important than others on a plane. So how do you make sure that those things happen? I know, of course, we want to keep it safe, and that it depends on your life. But the reason I ask that is because so many business owners, they have these same challenges that they can't seem to correct, but they're like the vitals of their business. And so in the aviation, it's like, I know there's certain things that either have to be checked before every takeoff. Like some you can count on the screen, some you can count on this, but there's some things you have to manually do. Tell us what that's like, so business owners can hear how to get that done. So,
and what I hear you asking is operations, right?
Yeah.
Like the thing that you do. How do you make that consistently good?
Yeah.
And it is a little bit unique in my industry just because there's already like pilots and mechanics, and everyone that works for me is, they're rated. They've got a license that they had to spend years to achieve. So they're licensed professionals, but there's already all these checklists. If you do something on a plane, there's a checklist to do it. If you change a tire, change a wheel, change an engine, take the wing off, put it back on, the inspection, there's an inspection checklist, hundreds of items where you got to just go down the list and check each one. And so that is kind of unique to my business, where I was already familiar with the checklist. And if you're, somebody that's still working on the product, that's where you take the biggest step when you start hiring people is, okay, how can I put this in a checklist form so that it'll be, at least 80% as good as when I do it.
Right.
And so that is a little bit unique. But at the same time, there's still the coaching, there's still the training, and then there's still I'm the business owner and I totally swung and missed on the wrong person. I hired the wrong person and that didn't, because you got to take responsibility when So another one of my, I brought on a wrong partner at one point, and boy, it almost ended me. But I was like, he's this, he's that, he's done all this, and my friend was like, well, who hired him, James? Who brought him in?
Yep.
You're right.
That's the part that really stinks about the business owner. I always tell business owners that the business you have today, all those challenges, weaknesses, all those things you need to fix, you either created those or you allowed them to happen because you're the business owner, so you should take responsibility. So let's keep moving through. You started your business, and we talked about how you had some stumbling blocks up until year 3, year 4. Let's talk about some of those, because that's the stuff the business owners can really learn from.
Yeah. So, like I said, word of mouth. I pretty much got past 1 million, and I was like, well, we just need to do more of what we're doing, which is true. I had no clue. I had zero sales training, zero marketing training. We had a website and a Facebook page, and that was it. And we would post on it, I don't know, maybe like once a month or something. There's we were not even trying. We had no clue. I had no clue what more looked like. How do we bring in more customers? And then, I was like, well, maybe we just need to do more products, more business. So I'll open all these other businesses. I'll open 5 businesses that are, complementary to this one business. At the point where I'm at like year 3, which is, your eyes are probably opening like, whoa, Jay, let's focus on one thing, right?
Yeah.
This is a terrible idea, So and I was like, well, let's do that. And so I was like, I don't know how to sell things, or I thought I didn't know how to sell things. I thought somebody could do it better than me. And that's actually a good lesson for somebody that's in that range. The best salesman on the team is the owner.
Yeah, amen.
You can ride that for a while,
amen,
before you start tossing big dollars at somebody. But needless to say, I tossed shit ton of money at somebody that I thought was going to take this thing to 10 million, and with no real expectations, no SOPs, no structure whatsoever. I just thought this was gonna work.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was a friend too. So that ended, poorly. And had to take out a ton of debt, and it put me behind the 8 ball big time, because I took out a lot of very expensive debt in the time, which I don't know if anyone, here's another great lesson. Don't do MCA loans. Talk to Michael, about help. So the most expensive debt I could possibly find, and I had to do what I had to do, though. I got through it, right? So it is what it is. So year 3 and 4 was, making up for that huge mistake. But it taught me so much about myself. It taught me how much more I could actually do in sales and marketing. It taught me, or forced me to learn how to actually sell and get better and better and better at it. It forced me to kind of lean out everything else. And you'd be surprised how much there's just kind of floating around, money going out the door. So we thought this one big vendor was the way to only buy this. We're like, oh, we can also get that on Amazon for 10%, or something. So it forced us to lean out, and then I'll tell you the biggest thing, this is what you do, right? You are encouraging people to invest in themselves, right? That's the heart of coaching, right? I started at that time investing in myself. And I started working with a coach. I started working with a therapist. I started working with somebody to help me with my advertising, with teach me how to run ads, and then eventually took it over. But I started investing in myself, and looking back from now compared to 2 years ago, it's just there's zero comparison. And so huge. The hard times you really gotta be thankful for them as well.
You make a great point, because it's not just one person you delegated or relied on. And I know sometimes business owners, they think, if I find one mentor or one coach, and I've got 4 coaches, they're for different reasons, different parts of my life, but to try to keep me rounded, because it can be rough as a business owner, like you're on an island by yourself. Okay. I was trying to sugarcoat it,
No, it's rough.
It's
and
rough.
You either got it or you don't.
Yeah. Well,
but on the flip side, you've got control over that.
That
you
is,
can you take responsibility to create a life. And I read this on your page, right? Turn your business into something that you don't hate. That's
yeah,
where I feel like so many people are. They're just like, man, I effing hate this. And I was there
yes.
too. I was like, there's no way.
Yeah, we've all been there. I learned over 2 decades ago when I'm in those situations and I'm like, the world around me is falling apart. Take a look inside. And I always say, until I change, nothing around me will change. So invest in those outside resources.
Boy, I'll tell you, there's so much wisdom there because in the moment, I mean, well, it felt like there for a solid full year every day. I was, bankruptcy was knocking at the door, right? Like it was just right there waiting for me. They were like, all right, you ready today? I felt like in here, I felt like everybody knows I'm done except for me yet.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
when I was like, when am I going to accept it? But that's a limiting belief that I was giving myself. It wasn't true. And I was like, and people kept telling me that. They're like, James, just focus on yourself. Try to be the best that you can be and stop focusing on the result all the time. You can't affect the result. Sometimes you get lucky. You could have bad inputs and get a really good result. You got lucky. Sometimes you put bad, really good inputs and get a bad result. Vice versa. So, just focus on the things that that will make you successful. What can you do that will make you successful? Running more ads, calling more customers. What about handwriting letters to people? Do you think that would get you more customers? Yeah. How much does that cost? Nothing except for the stamps,
Right.
and the paper to print it out on,
Yeah.
and pens, so, but in my heart, I was just like, well, how's this going to, work on myself? I need cash now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was short sighted. And then looking at it, when you start dragging that out and the timeline out, you realize, oh, okay, yeah, things started changing a lot when I started focusing and investing in myself and trying to make myself better.
Great advice. Go ahead.
May just not happen as fast as you want it.
Oh, no, never. Never. There's a great book out there. It's a little lengthy, but I encourage business owners to invest in mindset. It's by Carol Dweck. I mentioned earlier, I'm running my first marathon, and from my coaches, they all say, yes, strength training is important. Running, all that stuff is important. Your legs will feel like they're going to fall off. You'll feel like you hit a wall. But the number one they're all training me on is mindset, to get through it. And that's what you're saying about business ownership. It's yourself, it's your mind, your limited beliefs. And so powerful, powerful, powerful. So let's talk about you got deployed, and I'll let you tell the whole story because it's an incredible story.
Yeah. So when I was enlisted, I was deployed a few times, but most recently, first deployment as a pilot, deployed to the Middle East, and we were flying out of Qatar, and that was really scary because imagine being away from what you're building for 60 full days, where you're literally thousands of miles. And most people, if you're listening to this and you're in the early stage, or at least you can resonate with it if you're way past it. But who's fixes every problem?
Yeah.
You do,
Right. Most can't even leave for the afternoon.
Yeah, and then you get addicted to that because you're like, oh, this, you're Superman, right? You just fix every problem. It goes to if you haven't worked on your childhood trauma, that's like an addictive feeling, right? So, it forced me to finally, I had no control over, I could not touch anything physically. And so I had to work through people for 60 days, only forced. There was no way.
Wow.
It was tough. I mean, I primarily do sales, right? At the time, I was only bringing in sales. So we would do a 8-9 hour sortie in the Middle East, combat sortie, and land, and I'd hop on the phone. By the time I landed, it was daytime back home. Hop on the phone, start calling customers. All my bros are at the bar drinking beer. They're like, James, come on, give up with that. Just go to the airlines.
Yeah.
All my friends are at the airline. My peers are flying for American and Delta, and for them, they only work like 15 days a month. I'm working like 60-hour weeks.
Yeah.
but so it forced me to work through people, and I'm super grateful for it. Also, one of the sorties we flew, it was during, if you remember back to this past summer around April, spring April, Iran launched at Israel directly for the first time. And we had known that was going to happen. There was an escalation in the area, and we didn't know exactly when it was going to pop off. But we had a good idea. Intel was saying that very likely Iran is going to launch directly at Israel, and we're going to try to do everything we can to thwart the attack. And so normally we're doing routine combat sorties. That night we had a decent idea it was going to happen, and the crews that launched that night, we knew we were going to be going. I can't say where we were flying, but it was right between Israel and
Yeah.
and Iran is an area there, and so there's a one-way path between Iran and Israel. We're going to be directly in the middle of it, and they didn't know exactly. They said they may use missiles, they may use drones, but likely just drones is what they were telling us. And we're like, okay, well, those are probably several thousand feet beneath us. So we took off that night, and everyone we knew something was going to pop off, and we were just dead silent. But we knew in our hearts that's our job, right? Here we go. Let's go do our job. No questions asked. Every crew that launched that night. Normally, you at least have a couple planes that maintenance break. They just push through them. They got it. Got the planes in the air. Got past adversity. We did as well. And we took off, and we flew up to our operating area, and all through that area, United Arab Emirates and all the other countries, they had all ceased all their flying. No airlines were flying whatsoever. Some of the biggest, the most busy airspace in the world is through that area, and there was not a single airliner flying. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is
serious.
This is serious. So we went and we hit some. We refueled some F-15s that night. Normally there's some, when they hook up to us, which I fly a refueler, KC-135, we refuel the other planes in air. And, normally it's like, hey bro, how you doing? This night it was all business. They're like, we need as much gas as we can get right now, as fast as you can, and we're going to belt feed the jets to you. And so they took every ounce of gas that we could give them, and a little bit more, to where we were, feeling a little testy and making it back. Not like it. And, we're afraid we're going to run out of gas, but we need a certain amount just in case if anything goes wrong too, added to it. But we gave them everything that we could, and you could hear over the radio, they're shooting down things left and right. On the way back, we also had an in-flight emergency up at 30,000 feet. We lost our electrical system. Oh. And so for a moment, and mind you, Iran is launching, and we're looking at it, and you can see it. You can see the missiles, the contrails from the missiles overhead. And there's threats in the area and all this. And we had this in-flight emergency, and me and my crew, there's 3 people on a refueler. But that team was awesome, and we worked together the whole deployment, and we worked through what we did and made it back safely. And then when we got back, we were notified we were awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, us and the other crews that flew that night, which is the nation's 4th highest award, 3 beneath the Medal of Honor. So it was just really, really special.
Congratulations. And that shows the power of teamwork.
Yeah, that's right. Especially and I felt like in that moment, we were in the cockpit, and we're working together as a team to make it through. There are so many lessons that I was like, wow, this is just like a normal day back at the shop.
I was going to say, you're probably like, this is nothing, guys.
Yeah, there's missiles flying at me every day.
Exactly. Well, what are some of the... Go ahead.
I was just kidding. It was definitely terrifying. It was tough, but we worked together as a team.
Oh, just listening to that, you had me on needles. So what are some pivots that you learned along the way in your business that you feel like were well done, or maybe not well done at all, and you would never do them again?
Yeah, so pivot as something that we were going to try and it didn't work out, or
or it
so,
did.
yeah, that's right. One of them was actually this was during this time where I was gonna, okay, I need to open 5 new businesses.
Yeah.
And so I actually opened this little, one of my friends, who's one of my customers and mentor. I told him, I was like, I think I want to start a seaplane flight training business, and kind of have it as a complementary to what I'm doing. And I think we can make money with it. And he was like, well, yeah, man, I'll make the capital. I'll do the capital, but you're going to manage it. So
Wow.
we went out and bought an Icon aircraft. I wish it was right behind. It's actually out in front of me. I wish I had it, but it's a little 2-seat. It's like a jet ski with wings. It is so much fun. And over the past couple of years, should I have sold that thing and made my life a lot easier? Yeah, probably. But now it's actually making a lot of traction, and it's actually because it's actually forced me to start working with more people that actually know how to do Facebook and Google ads. You might be able to teach yourself Facebook and Google ads yourself if you're truly a wizard, but for the most part, you need somebody to help you.
Yep.
And so now that's helped me grow what I'm doing, like this, right? Doing podcasts, getting my face in front of the camera and learning that, hey, this is 2025. You're doing it, right? I saw your Instagram and Facebook. I mean, you're posting. You're probably doing multiple posts a day. You're doing a podcast. You're on everyone else's podcast. This is 2025. If you're not doing this, you're going to get left in the dust. So it is what it is.
Yep. Totally agree. Well, I know a lot of people probably want to learn more about you or from you. So what's the best place to follow you at?
Yeah, so on Instagram or YouTube, the same handle at the James Spearman, and then obviously website is www.spearmanaircraft.com. And I try to make as much, if you have any interest in aviation whatsoever, I try to make content that kind of shows people, little airplanes, or you might not be used to it. You'd be surprised how many of my customers are in their 40s and 50s, and they've got now the business is caught up. They've got some money to spend, and they're like, I think I want to be a pilot. Maybe I'll start buying back my time. They'll fly with a friend that has like a King Air or something, or another plane, and they're like, wow, this is awesome. I could do this. And so that's really who I help a lot, is those people, because buying an airplane is not like buying a car. The percentage of pilots in the United States is like 1%, and then the people that own an airplane on top of that is probably half of that or less.
Wow.
And so it's not like you can just ask your brother, hey man, when you bought an airplane, what was it like? So it's very rare, and the processes are completely different. And so it's good to have some sort of professional to help coach you into or through the process of buying an airplane. Are you going to hire a pilot, or are you going to learn how to fly? Or, how do you get insurance on it? How do you pay the sales tax on it? All of these things are pretty much foreign, and not, there's good, like AOPA is a good website that gives you this, but there's not like exactly books written on it. So that's where I like to help out.
Well, that brings up a great point. If only 1% fly, and less than that own their own aircraft, that's a very small percentage of the world's population. And I know for most business owners, they won't niche down. They won't find their little, as they say, stay in your lane. So they might be a landscaper, so they do pools and they do golf courses, and it's like, no, you got to find your lane. How do you differentiate yourself in such a small space so they can go, yeah, I really do need to niche down?
Yeah, I mean, probably the first thing to niche down is you need to work with people that have money to pay for your services.
Yeah, that's a good start.
It is way easier to deal with people that have they have the financial resources. When you send them a bill, it's not like, well, did it really take 10 minutes for this? Why did it do that? Yeah. They're just like, keep the card on file, James. I don't care. Just run it. Just make sure it's ready to go on Tuesday. Got it. And so I would say that's the number one. But for me, yeah, my customer base, realistically, the amount of people that I can affect and service is probably like 100,000 total in the United States. something very small to that. Now there are actually I think there's only I forget the numbers, but let 100,000 or less total people that I could actually help. And there's the what I really try to focus on is the Cirrus and the higher end aircraft. Diamond. There's only 5, 6, 7,000 of those planes total in the United States, or actually I think worldwide. But so there's probably down to me. There's probably only like realistically 10,000 planes, true customers that I want to work with, and it took me getting kicked in the where over and over and over again, taking on jobs that we couldn't be profitable on, customers that I didn't want to work with, until finally I was like, okay, I like working with these people.
Yeah.
My life would be so much easier if I just only worked with these people. And that's what really forced me to kind of niche down. So I'm a niche within a niche, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's an important part because so many business owners, they're afraid they're not going to make payroll if they don't take every single client. And so that was kind of my point here. You have a very, very small population that even can afford your industry, your service, aviation. And yet here's other contractors that have hundreds of thousands and they're so worried about missing a customer, so.
Yeah. That's actually that's a big limiting belief right there.
Yes.
Because you're actually, what you're doing is sabotaging yourself.
Yeah.
If the longer that you continue to just say yes to everyone, you are sabotaging yourself.
Absolutely.
And, there's been jobs where I said yes and made payroll and it cost me way more in the long run.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. I got one last question before we sign off here. It's if you got a second to think about it, that's all right. But it's if you were in a room full of entrepreneurs, different sizes of business, lengths of business, what's something that's applicable to all of them? It could be a tip. It could be a book, a quote.
Something that I would give them.
Sure, yeah.
Or something that
you would say, you would share, that could be applicable to all entrepreneurs, no matter what business they own.
Well, now I'm really big into sales. I'd ask which ones of you own an airplane that I can help with, but
yeah. I would say our listeners probably maybe one.
That's
one.
Really, I only service 100 customers a year, so
okay. All right.
That's 10% of my volume.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right, 1%. Yeah, so I would say something that every one of them would have in common is I don't think there's any way to escape that how difficult this is to do it. And if each person somebody told me, money actually it exaggerates who you are. And so if you have a lot of if you've got addictions or you got a lot of things going on that you're not good at right now, and then or limiting beliefs or the way you sabotage yourself, if you have all those right now, toss in $1 million, $2 million, it's going to make it that much worse. And so I think every person at that level that owns a business realizes how hard this is, and how it's you've really got no choice. You're either gonna put yourself in the hospital, or you're or you're gonna work on yourself and try to get better, and work with people like you that can make your life. You can do this and enjoy life at the same time. that is true.
That is words of wisdom, because I'm often asked, have you ever seen a business owner as bad as me? And we're all bad. We all have our challenges. We're not bad. We're just learning. And we're doing something that most others won't. Kind of like your pilots. We are a small percentage.
There was a really good, I started working when things got really bad, right? Like anytime things get bad, right? It's easy when the coach is winning. Yeah. Everyone's like, oh yeah, he's got that. He's got everything figured out. As soon as things go bad, right? You normally tend to internalize all of it. You try to close down. That's a normal process. And you're like, well, I'm just, I just suck this bad. There's no way anyone else sucks as bad as I'm doing. That's a normal normal reaction, I went to this company that was going to help me, like look into finances and try to start making a plan. And I was internalizing all this, and I was like, God, I just feel like I'm really, this is really tough, and I suck. And he slaps me on the back. He's like, James, you know what? If you've never had to put payroll on a credit card before, you're not a real entrepreneur.
That's a good point.
And it made it like I almost released. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Bad credit scores, almost bankrupt, payroll on credit cards. Yeah. You're not an entrepreneur if you haven't done just those few things. So, James, you've been a wealth of information and fun to talk with. Wish you continued success, and we'll see you around over on the social channels.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for listening to Small Business Pivots. This podcast is created and produced by my company, Boss. Our business is growing yours. Boss offers flexible business loans with business coaching support. Apply in minutes and get approved and funded in as little as 24 to 48 hours at businessownershipsimplified.com. If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share it as well. If you need help growing your business, email me at michael@michaeldmorrison.com. We'll see you next time on Small Business Pivots.